AI, the bad actors using them in different arenas. They are using to make their attacks more sophisticated and more precise.
In this episode, we're exploring how artificial intelligence is reshaping security and OT network requirements. That's right. This episode is focused on operational technology. We'll learn how AI is impacting everything from the factory floor to transportation networks and how we get around. Moxa's Felipe Sabino Costa will cover the importance of OT data. We'll discuss OT security in the age of AI. We'll dive into certifications, and he'll share his outlook on the future of OT networks. Today, on Manufacturing Happy Hour. Felipe, it's good to have you here on Manufacturing Happy Hour. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris, and all of you that are listening to us. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And cybersecurity in general, OT security, it's a topic that we talk about on the show at least once a year, right? It's probably been at least a year since we've done this, so we are overdue for a refresh here. And you're just the right person to have here on the show. And we're going to dive into a few topics today, but let's do the first one. Let's go into a 101 question right out of the gate. Why is OT, operational technology, data, so important right now? Or said another way, like, what are some of the reasons manufacturers should care about OT data?
Yeah, that is definitely a good question, Chris. I believe that's the moment that we are living. It's a big change in how the industry used to do things and the needs that we have now. So nowadays, OT data isn't anymore about logging and make just let's say historical data analysis, right? It's more like about predictive power, instant control, precision. So all of that actually shifts the way that we used to do things for the new technology and more data and everything else. So definitely it's a demand for more precision and health, energy, and other things that we are seeing. Uh, they are also shifting for a more predictive thing instead of just a reactionary. I would add to real-time decisions. So we are seeing that historically we used to use the feedback as the process like ends and send some information back to return a decision-making process. But now we need to make it way faster. So during the process, the system should recognize what's happening and shift decisions in the middle of the process. So it's a way different in the way we used to do in the past.
Yeah, so I'm hearing predictive versus reactive, a need to make faster decisions. One thing that I think is worth adding to this as well, and this is a big portion of our conversation, is I
Right.
mentioned we've talked about this on the show before, but the last time I talked about OT, it was really, AI wasn't really part of the conversation. Like,
Correct.
what challenges are manufacturers actually hitting when they try to transmit OT data, especially now that artificial intelligence is part of the picture?
Yeah, you nailed it, Chris. Because actually, a lot of these pushes and this demand that we are talking about, different time or parts of the process where we make the decision, it's driven by AI, right? So AI may have different meanings, but definitely the idea is choose data to do something else that we used to do or could not do in the past. So when we think in the OT, that by the way stands for operational technology, so basically industrial applications, build things, right? We see that they are very old systems. Most of them, they are running like 15, 20 years ago. And they have, as you imagine, a very limited type of bandwidth, the way they were designed. Because AI is pretty much like 5 years, 6 years age in OT, if you will. So definitely the system were not designed for that. So this is the first challenge: how I make the data enable AI with this very old infrastructure. The second thing is more about how you used to do things. So it used to be standalone networks. So basically, I had different factories. They had their own job. They don't had the need or didn't have the need to exchange information. But now they do. I need to send data basically to maybe a cloud or a corporate data center to make more, let's say, across the globe decisions to be more efficient. And that demands new type of connections. And I'm dealing with these old systems transmit more data and now in a more complex network. So this basically a huge headache for all the people, including myself, that need to make that happen.
So if I'm hearing it correctly, like legacy networks with limited bandwidth, that was the way, things
Right.
used to be done. And then
Correct.
also like standalone networks, if you will, where they were isolated in the past. Now with all the need to transmit data, things are tied together in ways they weren't before.
Exactly. One word that the industry used to like is air-gapped networks or air-gapped system. So basically, it's the meaning of isolated systems operating by itself, right? So you got it.
Well, I'd like to dive into the bandwidth topic a little bit more because I guess the basic question is, why is bandwidth a particular issue right now? When we chatted before this conversation, I believe you had a good example from the transportation industry, possibly others as well. Can you share an example from industry that illustrates this a little bit?
Absolutely. I'd say for to bring the concept, put some color, right? It's like nowadays we have 4K or high definition videos and try to stream in a very old connection, right? The copper or the old telephone networks that you used to have. So it's that hard. Basically, you have a very old infrastructure, and now we are trying to stream a very high definition images or video. So this is just to paint a picture, right? And why and how it's happening, technically speaking. A few examples that is exactly running under that situation. As you can imagine, we have the ITS, that is intelligent transportation system. So the cameras and other, let's say, solutions that we have in highways to make the transportation safer and also allow us, right, the people that work with this data make wise decisions and send basically people to support, etc. So what I have been seeing is this type of system they have been adding more cameras, high resolution cameras, to take pictures of the cars or even stream live video, right, to exactly deliver these type of solutions I explained. And this is definitely increasing the quantity of information that I need to transmit through the line. And this is a very actual example that we have been working with different customers to help them to make this transition. Another one that is really hot and we can connect with AI. We have a lot of new type of processors, right? And in order, as you can imagine, it's a very precise process, and you need to create in a very speed and in a very secure way, in precise way. So they are using a lot of high definition cameras, very in the very end of the process. So pretty much like where I'm building the processors, cameras to help in the image recognition or to improve different parts of the system, right? So basically use the image to support a better quality control or even increasing the precision in how we make things. So right there, in the past, we used to do in a different way. And now we use the cameras to help in the process. So this is another example where we didn't have the need in the past to use this type of definition, but as the adoption of AI is getting more popular, definitely we are seeing this hunger data type of applications where they demand more data. Just to name a few of them.
So I'm gonna summarize here as best I can just to do a quick recap because those are two similar but different examples. I thought both are really
Right.
great. When we're talking about transportation, you're talking about intelligent transportation systems. The core thing that you're trying to do is make transportation safer.
Right.
And you do this by adding cameras. As a result of adding more cameras, you're transmitting more data, hence why bandwidth could be an issue in that scenario.
Exactly.
And then similarly with the processors that you were talking about, it's a high definition process for making those controls. So again, you're bringing more visibility to that process, creating more data at the end of the day, and then hence again creating a situation where increased bandwidth is needed.
Exactly, and it's also important to share with your audience, right? That is, this is the technical aspect, but usually we have very specific needs across many industrial applications. So reliability, we can, as you can imagine, for example, Nevada, the temperature outside, right? It's extremely hot, and among other states. So in other states, it may be really cold, and the device should be running to provide all the safety and all the things that we just described, and in a very, let's say, harsh environment, right? So we should include like this rugged design, wide temperature kind of combinations with the hardware. So when we are actually talking about making all these AI adoptions and help the industry shift right from this old to the new paradigm, definitely we need to deal with all these specifics that the industry demands. So this is where you also need to have this specific technology and hardware to make that happen.
Yeah, appreciate the extra deep dive into where hardware and temperature kind of play together in all of this as well. I'm going to move into another thread of conversation, and that's OT security in the age of artificial intelligence. I mentioned security at the start. Really, we were just talking more on the data side there at the start.
Right.
But let's ask another question to set the baseline. What is the current threat landscape as it relates to OT networks?
Yeah, that's 1 million type of question, right? I'd say we have a lot of challenges, but I try to name the two major ones. The first one, it ties together with the first part of the conversation where we said that the industry used to be air gapped or isolated. And many of the companies, they still think that they are, but they are not anymore, right? When to be really air gapped, I shouldn't have any way to send data. But if I already have some, even it's one connection to send data to a cloud or to another factory, that is not air gapped anymore, right? So it's what we have been seeing. So this, the fact that I have these connections, doesn't matter if it's one or thousand of connections, I have a way to send data. We start to see this demand for what we call a second layer of defense or close to the edge, or another way is actually protecting the real industrial device. Because as you can imagine, IT or information technology, they born with security, so all their solutions, they kind of already have this design in mind. But the industry, like we discussed 15 years, 20 years ago, security per se, the data security was not really a thing. Safety was, but now exactly because the reasons we are talking here, security is also extremely important, right? So this is definitely one of the major challenges or threat landscape that we can name it inside the industry. The fact that I need additional layers of security, and the industry is working on that. Just to give a number, usually give and take 80% of the global industry, including US, does not have these specific layers of defense in the very edge. They have some defense, let's say on the IT layer, and some defense on the segmentation between automation and let's say cooperative networks, but they have nearly zero protections close to the process itself. So this is where we need to work to protect.
Yeah, those were two pretty, I mean, those are big examples right there. For the folks that listen, I mean, let's just go back to the one you just said. Like around 85% of the industry in the
Right.
US doesn't have basic defense in these type of
Mm.
scenarios. So that means there's really only like close to what, 20% of people that are really actually
Yeah.
doing something. So I hope the manufacturing leaders listening are asking themselves, am I part of that 20% or am I in the vast majority here that aren't really doing enough around defense? The
Right.
other thing you mentioned is companies that once thought they were air gapped, right, probably aren't anymore. With all the connections that have taken place, it almost does seem inevitable that pretty much, I don't know, pretty much any company probably has some sort of connection to the cloud. Obviously, not all
Right.
of them, right? But
Yeah.
it's become ubiquitous, especially over the past decade, that that's the reality. There is somewhere in that process that is likely connected to the cloud. So just a good self-awareness for the manufacturing leaders there. My next question is, how has artificial intelligence resulted in new threats to OT security?
Yeah, definitely. We may have a different lens to explore these, but AI, like we are we are using in every place. Basically, we're seeing the threat actors or the bad actors using them in different arenas or different areas. I would say try to put it like more broadly. they are using to make their attacks more sophisticated and more precise. So they, as we use, right, ChatGPT and many others to process a huge amount of data information and getting sites of it, they are basically doing the same. So this is one way to put, right? They are combining different information about vulnerability, type of industry, and with that, they can craft a very sophisticated attack with basically no knowledge or very near nothing knowledge about it, OT systems, and create these attacks. Probably one of the most common type is the phishing, where the attacker kind of fake an email and make the person or help the person, right, to make this click on specific links and make a compromise of the device. So basically, this is they are everywhere, but definitely now it's they are doing faster and better the attacks that they used to do.
Yeah, I like that you use the phishing example. One thing that at least comes to mind, and tell me if you feel I'm on the right track.
Right.
When I leverage tools like ChatGPT and it starts to get to know a little bit more about me, about my podcast, for example, right? It's able to tailor responses better
Mhm.
in the same way that a phishing attack, which is a very targeted type of, hey, I'm trying to get this particular person to open this file, for example.
Right.
With
Right.
artificial intelligence, you can refine what that looks like so it
You got it.
comes off as even more real than it may have in the past. Do you think that's a correct parallel to draw?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is exactly what's happening. One of the faces, right, on how the hackers are using. We have many others, but definitely that's really precise what you just said. Usually in the past, we would make like a simple scan, looking or reading the email, and we're going to find some typos or some inconsistencies. And now it's really harder to find it. So we need like additional layers or even another AI to check this to verify it, right? So it's way harder to take this type of phishing attacks right now.
Well, let's put this in the context of a story. Can you share an example as to how attacks are becoming more sophisticated due to AI? We talked a little bit about that in the context of phishing. I'd love to hear a bit more.
Absolutely. I believe that connects pretty much what we have been discussing, right, in the other conversation, other part of the conversation. AI have been evolving, and now in the past we used to wait for to have a response, to feedback it, and make a decision afterwards, after the fact. And now AI is pushing right through exactly making this process early in the process, the decision, and actually have a more efficient. So the hackers actually they are using the same analogy. So historically in the past, let's assume that they used to like do like scans, looking for specific ports, and it was like a binary decision. I had like zeros and ones, and if the port wasn't open, I had to skip for another thing or maybe another target. But now with AI, actually the AI can adapt the code during the flight. And now let's assume that it's scanning some ports, it will be receiving some information, and it can adapt the code to change during the flight attack. So they can be way more efficient and more dangerous, if you will. So with that, basically, as everything else, the way that we used to do things, we cannot use, you cannot do it anymore, right? In the same way. So one thing that I have been discussing with different customers actually used to be really prevent to work on the prevent, and more in the way that we used to defend. That is too important. Definitely, we should be doing that still, but it definitely is not enough anymore, right? To just work in the prevention, avoid, have some layers itself. So this is the shift you have been seeing, right? As AI is evolving, the threats are evolving. The traditional defense on have this the perimeter or these layers that are also called defense in depth. It's extremely important. Like you said, it's still 80 or 85% industry. It's not doing even that. So definitely it's a step that it should be doing. But for those folks that are more, let's say, mature, they will be looking for something else, right? There is no silver bullet. So definitely it's why we have these conversations with different customers and different, let's say, organizations, understand their sizes and etc. Because actually we need to understand who is the company, what they're trying to do, and adapt the best solution to them, right? So basically, it will be a combination of defense in depth, detection, response. And in order actually to have all of that, we will probably we should talk about 603. That is one framework, or even NIST, that is here in the US. For those who are familiar with the security landscape, they probably already heard NIST before. So, anyways, these are kind of two frameworks, right, that can help the industry, the manufacturer like myself, they work at the Moxa, the company that I work for. We design products, and I would say it's not just a matter in how we build the product and we put the right things right there. That definitely it's part of the 643 it defines, but it's also what happens afterwards. If I have like people that can help the customer if they are facing an incident, or if they find vulnerabilities that are basically flaws, if they have the right department to talk to. So basically, I believe you're going to explain later to the audience during our conversation, but Pierced is definitely the response team that are specialized people that definitely they will receive that vulnerability and have a specific timelines to address. So we are seeing this trend, right, where basically we need to have this change in how we perform security. It's a combination of things, so we definitely need a more strategic, I would say, security for the industry nowadays.
As we get into some of the certifications and solutions here at the end of the interview, that's going to come up. We'll get to that in a second. But before we get there, we should talk about NIST. We've talked about NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We've talked about it on the show before in our security focused episodes. Can you first describe NIST for our audience? We have folks listening that are probably very familiar with it, and others that, maybe just hear it from time to time.
No, you got it. Before I really jump there, I believe that's important also to align the strategy part, right, Chris? So we're going to share a few standards. You just name a few of them that I'm going to talk in a minute. But basically, it's important to understand that there is no silver bullet, right? There is no like one thing that are going to fix all the problems. So this is where I have different industries doing different things and try to combine the best they can, the good practices that are definitely the case for niche and 643. So we are seeing this shift, right, from this resilience or and how we used to do security, and now we are seeing a more combination of things. A strategy should be way more sophisticated. So we should consider resilience. Defense in depth is another thing that we're going to see in a different place. And ultimately, these frameworks, 6 over trainees, they help us to put all this piece together, right? So definitely, it's not just one thing or one product or one analysis. Is actually a combination of things. So this is where we come with basically NIST. NIST, it's like you said, is an organization that they do different things, and they have one framework that is basically help you understand different phases and where or how you should be deploying security. And they have specific, let's say, handbooks or special editions, publications where you can have specific information. So they also have specifically for industry a few documentations that you can refer. So we can adapt to basically the framework with any other documentation that they have, and with that you have all the specific and the broad. So basically, the NIST is the most well-known framework for who works with basically security in different aspects, because helps us a lot and helps us to have this frame in how I can combine different steps and make sure I'm progressing and evolving in my structure, right? So this is the first one. And you kind of mentioned also 643 that actually it's ISA 992, so it's born here in the West, but obviously with the years, we saw the European and other markets using this standard. Now it's basically a global framework that is named with this big number like 62443, like you said.
I believe you had a pretty good analogy as to how IEC 62443 is similar to nutrition labels relative to
Yeah,
NIST. Can you go into that
yeah.
a little bit?
I thank you for that. By the way, as we talk, I love food, right? So sometimes I try to relate with food a lot of things. At least for me, it's some easy and fun way to do it. So if you like him, can you imagine for a person that is not in the area? So if I talk about niche, maybe it's not on their day to day context. So definitely another way to make a comparison is basically the food industry. So let's imagine that you have the line that build or manufacture the food, right? So this is we are seeing now different certifications appearing. And one of them is 6043 that actually can certify the line, for example, in how we build the food or basically how we build our products. So this is one angle that 6043 helps the manufacturers in how we can make better products. The other thing is actually historically it was really hard to really understand how the product could be secure compared to other products. So if you compare like a food itself that has the nutritional label and you can see everything that is there, the ingredients and the proportion, etc. So we also have this by food or by product certification where the company, the manufacturer, the industry can buy a product and actually have the full picture, the nutritional information about the product, where it has security, which type of security features it has, and so on, right? So basically, it helps in how we build the products, the line, and how we build confirmation of the product itself. That would be the label, and pretty much a final one usually. To have these certifications, you should have something that's called a peers, that is a response team. To actually, if you find something, you should have a contact part of the company that are going to respond to that. So that we can make the analogy pretty much with the hotline where we can call and make your comment or request, and somebody in the company is going to address that. So we can make this very same analogy to basically the industry side. Having the certifications, the company should have this type of group or a department inside the organization to be able to literally take these requests and work on them and have it like a shortcut. So I hope everybody's hungry right now, right? But definitely, this is a good example in how we can combine security with our daily lives example.
Yeah, yeah, no, so I'll just recap that analogy really quickly because I'm a cereal guy. I have a bowl of cereal pretty much every
I
morning
love
for
it.
breakfast, right? So using that example, when I look at the nutrition label on a bowl of cereal, the things we're talking about, cybersecurity certifications like IEC 62443, like NIST, it's basically saying, hey, the same way a nutrition label would say, hey, this is a nutritious product. It would say this is a secure product, like the type of like the security products you're creating, correct?
You got it exactly. It helps all of us, right? The manufacturers now they know what they should be doing, and also who is gonna buy it also has the is certain that they are buying the security that they need.
Yeah. Now, I probably should have asked this more directly, and it's come up as part of the answers, but I do have to ask it directly. Like, what is IEC 62443, and why is this a certification that manufacturers should be paying attention to, especially?
Yeah, trying we kind of already addressed that, but I believe the best way to include it's a standard or a handbook that recommends different things for different audience. So the thing that makes 603 very unique is the fact that they address different audiences, basically the manufacturers. So as I work in a product manufacturer, so definitely they give guidance for the people like me that are going to build products. They also help the people that are going to put together the solution, that is the integration part. And they also help the end customer to know how to ask and what to ask, right? So basically, they close this loop with all the parties or the roles that how they define that they should be talking and integrating. So the easiest way to define they put it like the expectations for each part, so each one knows what they should be doing to deliver a system with security. So this is why globally wise we are seeing the adoption of 643. Like I said, maybe for some folks here on the industry, they're gonna hear ISA 99 is the same thing. So definitely we are seeing this adoption in different areas. because definitely make a lot of easier for all of us that are helping the industry or needing help to protect the very edge that we discuss. We have some guidance, some handbook that we can follow. And the best part, I would say, is we have third parties labs that can certify. It's not like self-stated. So also, all of us, we can be sure that it will be receiving, delivering, and basically combining the efforts to deliver security.
I appreciate the specific recap on that portion. Anytime I throw out a number or a standard in this conversation, I like to make sure we like double down and define it for
Yeah,
the folks that are listening, whether they're in the car or at the gym or doing something else. So now that we've dove into that, one of my last questions is you're at a cyber you're at a company that does security solutions. Can you describe how Moxa focuses on cyber resilience in your designs?
yeah, definitely. As a company, we follow basically two major frameworks. So frameworks helps us to make sure we are evolving and doing the right things and in the right time. So one of them for let's say the IT side, we follow the ISO 27000 series. That is more like how we make the data and all the information from our customers secure. But specifically for the products, like we said, the line, how we build, how we create products, 6443 has a specific, let's say, books or certifications to define what should be included, right? So part of that we addressed during our conversation, that there was the team, a specific team to respond incidents, right? So this is one thing. The other thing is we should be looking actively in our process for vulnerabilities. So before the bad guys find it, it's our job to try to find it earlier and address this and provide corrections. So definitely it's also about the process. It is not something that I define. Following the standard and have some other company come by and make sure I'm doing, it's good for everybody, right? So this is why we're seeing this standardization in how we define security is getting really popular. The other thing is, okay, now I know that I'm building a right product and I have all the process in place that I definitely can help customers and not deliver them the supply chain risk because I'm minimizing all of them. We can address specifically solutions. So definitely part of that conversation it's around and how we can make better protection on the very edge of the network. So basically, how we can make better network segmentation. So definitely, we have solutions for that. The other thing is visibility. We the second major problem after right the segmentation itself is the lack of visibility. So definitely, we have some solutions that can help the customer increase the visibility and what's happening in the very end and anticipate if maybe the person is under an incident, right? Some type of hacker on the network. So this is definitely what we're seeing like a necessary. It's not like a trend, but based on everything that we just discussed, it's absolutely necessary. You have this type of visibility, segmentation, and have companies that actually can help not introducing new vulnerabilities in your system.
Yeah, I think one important point I'd use as a bit of a summary around this topic is for the folks out there that are in manufacturing, especially for the folks where security isn't necessarily their day to day primary focus. What I think you've shared is some very helpful understanding on what makes products and solutions secure by design so that folks have a better idea of what questions to ask their security teams, folks like yourself, when they're looking to make their processes more secure, which, as we just covered today, is more important than ever because artificial intelligence has changed the threat landscape once again. My final question for you is a future looking
Right.
question. What's your outlook on the future development of OT networks?
Yeah. So definitely looking for the future. We are seeing this definitely AI, the adoption, and all the goods and the threats that it brings. Like we just defined, it's gonna just increase. I definitely don't see a future where we will not have this. need for improvement, right? All of us, we are being pressured and driven by all these demands. So definitely this scenario that we described in and over in this nice conversation, uh, the trend is just getting more and more in both sides, right? More demand and more threats coming from this demand. So although we are seeing these efforts and having certifications that are definitely needed, and it's going to take some time to the market to really mature enough to really be self-regulated, and the customers deploying, requesting, and the ecosystem actually drive to this scenario where everybody is to be working together. So we are in this shifting phase, if you will. So this is why, if I put it like in a simple way, I would recommend if you are like an asset owner, like you call the responsible for the system, and you are unsure in how to do it, and keep in mind, right? Any change, if you change anything in the system, can create uh, incidents, right? If you don't know exactly what we're doing. So this is why the industry is really extend in how to make change in systems. So in short, you need to really know what you're doing to not generate more problems or extra vulnerabilities, etc. So find a partner, a company, right? Moxa obviously is one of the companies that I work for, that I know that I can recommend, that we take seriously the topic. But the idea is find a partner that definitely understands about networking and security and can help you build a plan. Because it's not just a matter of put products, should have a lot of knowledge and understanding the impact that I just described. So based in that, this is our DNA, basically, Moxa. We do that all the time. We are defining networkings. We are studying our customers to help them to achieve their goals. So basically, I believe that helps a lot. You'll find it, and you can target or focus in your core business, right? And you can make sure that you are having the extra layer of security, the improvements you need, and leveraging the AI that is definitely necessary here, but in the right way, with the right security in place, and make sure you have protections that we need in the time that we're living right now.
Yeah, and Felipe, you've had a great career in OT networks and security. I'm going to make sure folks have a way to connect with you over in the show notes
Yeah.
page at the end of this episode, ways to learn more about Moxa's OT security solutions. Those will be linked up in the show notes as well. I do have
Yeah.
one final question for you. The nutrition labels conversation got this on my mind. So, in the spirit of manufacturing happy hour, I often ask my guests, hey, if we were having this conversation over a drink, what would that drink be, right? In your case, if we were having this conversation over a meal, you mentioned you were a big foodie. What would that meal be, out of curiosity?
Wow, that's a hard question. Usually, to be fair, I love like junk food in general, right?
Yeah.
But I try to be more disciplined about it. A couple of things. So
Okay.
nutrition is something that I try to work hard on that. So definitely it would be like a protein shake, I guess. It's not fun, I know, right? So maybe a lot of people are gonna say, "Boo," but that's true.
I mean, when you talk
But
now your nutrition label analogy makes more sense.
right, I read all of them. I read all of them.
I still need to make it to the gym today, and I will be having a protein shake afterwards as well. So that's kind of a fun way to end this, actually. The first episode of Manufacturing Happy Hour recorded over a
Yeah.
theoretical protein shake.
That's and I want to make sure the guys, like you said, if you're listening to us, definitely we can um, talk about what called solution days that myself or any other professional in our group for security can have conversations about that and definitely help you without no commitment. So definitely something that we are doing and helping a lot of customers. So maybe you can invite me to have a protein shake, right, with you guys.
Sounds good. Well, for anyone out there, whether you're drinking protein shakes or having something else, I always encourage folks, especially with these security focused episodes, to make sure you're having conversations about your operation, about your networks, and you're a great person to have those discussions with. So, Felipe, thanks so much for jumping on the show.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. Thanks for this opportunity, and I hope all of you guys enjoy it. See you.
Cheers. See ya.